You poured a glass of milk this morning, drank it, and nothing happened. That is not normal. Roughly 2 out of every 3 adults on this planet cannot do that without paying for it. Cramps. Bloating. A genuinely bad afternoon. For most of our species, that is simply what milk does. So the interesting question is not what is wrong with them. It is what is strange about you. You are the odd one here, and the reason is written inside you, in your DNA. Somewhere back in your family tree, something happened that did not happen to most people's. By the end of this, you will know what that was, and why it spread so violently fast. And why, for thousands of years before that, the very same ability was completely useless. Start with how every mammal on Earth is built, because on this point they are all identical. A baby mammal drinks milk. To break that milk down, its body needs a specific tool. That tool is an enzyme, and every single mammal is born making plenty of it. Then, around the time the baby stops nursing, the body quietly switches that tool off. A kitten does it, a puppy does it, a calf does it, a human child does it too. And it makes perfect sense. Why keep building a tool for a food you will never eat again? So being unable to drink milk as an adult is not a disease and not a defect. It is the factory setting. It is what bodies on this planet have done for 200 million years. The name we gave it, lactose intolerance, makes it sound like something has gone wrong. It is the other way round. The rest of the world is normal. You are the strange one. Now look at where that strangeness actually lives, because it is spread very unevenly. In Denmark, Sweden, and the Netherlands, more than 9 adults in 10 keep the tool for life. Ireland is nearly the same. So is most of Britain. Travel south to Italy or Greece, and it drops to roughly 1 adult in 3. Keep going to China, Japan, or Korea, and it falls under 5% of adults. In most of East Asia, an adult who drinks a glass of milk regrets it within the hour. This is not habit, and it is not simply what people happen to grow up eating. Move a Danish baby to Beijing, and it will still be drinking milk quite happily at 40. The difference sits in the instructions we are built from, not in the culture around us. So what is that instruction? It turns out to be far smaller than you would expect. The gene that builds the milk tool sits on your 2nd chromosome, and it is completely ordinary. Everybody has it. Everybody's version works. That is not where the difference lives at all. A little way along the DNA, some distance away, sits something that works more like a switch. Its only job is to send the off signal when childhood ends. In most people, that signal arrives on time, and the tool shuts down for good. In you, one single letter of that switch is different, so the off signal never arrives. The tool simply keeps running, quietly, in the background, for the whole of your life. 1 letter. That is the entire difference between a glass of milk and a ruined evening. Here is where it gets strange. That single letter is young. Startlingly, recently young. We can check this, because we can now pull DNA out of ancient bones and read it directly. Look at the first farmers spreading across Europe, and the letter is almost nowhere to be found. Then, across a few thousand years, it goes from rare to almost everywhere. Scientists have a way of measuring how hard nature is pushing on a change like this one. This one sits near the very top of everything ever measured in the human genome. Almost nothing in your body spread as fast or as forcefully as the ability to drink milk. Which tells you something uncomfortable. Something was quietly killing the people who did not have it. And here the story hits a wall that took researchers 20 years to get over. Because people were milking animals for thousands of years before that letter ever showed up. We know that because of pottery, which turns out to be a surprisingly good recorder. Put milk in a clay pot and tiny amounts of fat soak into the clay and stay there. Thousands of years later, you can grind up a fragment and pull that same fat back out. Milk fat has its own chemical signature. There is no mistaking it for anything else. Richard Evershed and his colleagues have been reading those fragments since the 90s. Dairy shows up in Turkey and the Balkans about 9,000 years ago. In Britain, 6,000 years ago. And everywhere, long before anyone could actually digest the stuff. So for thousands of years, people farmed milk that made them ill. The obvious question is why? Because they were not drinking it as it came. They were fixing it first. In Poland, archaeologists found flat clay dishes riddled with small holes, 7,000 years old. Those are strainers. They are for making cheese. And cheese is the answer. The part of milk that causes all the trouble drains away with the liquid. Aging removes most of what is left. Hard cheese has almost none of it at all. Yogurt is the same trick. The bacteria in it eat the problem before you ever do. Stone Age farmers had solved milk entirely, without any help from their genes. Which sharpens the question instead of answering it. If cheese already worked, why did the letter spread? In 2022, Evershed's team went looking properly, and the study they built is enormous. 7,000 pieces of ancient pottery, every one checked for traces of milk. More than 1,000 ancient human genomes, every one checked for that single letter. Both sets plotted onto the same map, running across 9,000 years of time. The expectation was simple. Milk use should rise, and the letter should rise along with it. That is not what happened. Milk use stays high and steady for thousands of years. The letter stays rare through almost all of that, and then jumps up very late. The two lines simply refuse to line up. Not in one region. Not anywhere on the map. So the gene did not spread because people started drinking milk. Something else was pushing it. What the letter does follow is much darker. It rises exactly where life got hard. Famine years. Crowded settlements. Living pressed up against animals and whatever they carried. Here is the argument, and once you have heard it, it is quite hard to unhear. If you are healthy and well-fed, being unable to digest milk is merely unpleasant. Cramps, a wasted afternoon, a lesson learned. It is not going to shorten your life. Now take that same body and starve it for a season. Undigested milk sugar pulls water out of your body and into your gut. That means diarrhea. And diarrhea means losing fluid you cannot spare. In someone already starving, or already sick, that is not discomfort. That is how you die. So in an ordinary year, having the letter or not having it barely matters at all. In a famine year it decides which of them is still standing at the end of it. Nature does not need to push often. It only needs to push very hard when it does. And there is one last piece that settles it, and it comes from a different continent entirely. Cattle herders across Africa can drink milk as adults too. Same ability, same kind of switch. But the letter that changed is not our letter. There are at least 3 separate African versions. For separate times, in populations with no contact at all, evolution reached for the same answer. When an answer keeps getting reinvented, the pressure behind it was real, and it was lethal. So that glass on your table is not an ordinary human thing at all. It is a local repair. It belongs to people whose ancestors kept cattle and went hungry, and that is why you are here.